The mud is alive. It swallows boots, rifles, hope. A British soldier lies trapped in no man's land, barbed wire cutting into his leg, unable to move. Artillery shells scream overhead and explode in fountains of earth and fire. Men are dying all around him. He's been here for 6 hours, maybe 7. Time loses meaning when every second might be your last. He closes his eyes, waiting for the shell that has his name on it. Then, silence. Not the peaceful kind, the eerie kind, the kind that makes your skin crawl because something is about to happen. Through the smoke and cordite haze, he sees it, a shape, moving. It shouldn't exist. It's massive, clunky, rattling like a collection of scrap metal held together by prayer and insanity. Black smoke puffs from its sides. Tracks grind through mud that has stopped entire battalions. It moves like a living creature, but it's made entirely of steel and rivets and impossible engineering. The soldier stares, unsure if he's hallucinating from blood loss or witnessing something that will change warfare forever. It rolls past German machine gun nests. Bullets bounce off its armor like rain. It crushes barbed wire beneath its weight. And then it stops, right next to him. A hatch opens. Hands reach down. They pull him inside. He's the 47th man rescued that night by a machine the world said would never work.
They called it useless. The man who built it was called insane. But this machine just saved 47 men in one night. And he built it decades before the war even began. How? Why? Who was this man? And how did he see the future when no one else could? An invention the world mocked ended up rewriting the rules of survival. He built a machine no one wanted until everyone needed. History forgot his name, but you'll never forget what he built. This is the story of the machine that should have never worked and the man who proved the impossible.
His name was Benjamin Holt, and in 1904, while the world was still fighting wars with horses and bayonets, he was building something that belonged in the distant future. Picture a workshop in Stockton, California. Dust motes float in shafts of sunlight, tools hang on wooden walls, and in the center, surrounded by sketches and failed prototypes, stands a man the world has written off as a lunatic. His machine, a tracked vehicle powered by a steam engine, sits motionless in the corner. It's meant to move across soft ground where wheels sink and horses struggle. It's meant to revolutionize agriculture, transportation, maybe even warfare. But no one cares.
Holt presents his invention to investors. They laugh. Military officials inspect it and walk away, shaking their heads. Newspapers mock him. A metal caterpillar, they call it. A waste of steel and time. Engineers dismiss the design as impractical. The tracks will break. The engine will fail. It's too heavy, too slow, too ridiculous to ever matter. One critic writes, Mr. Holt has invented a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. So the machine sits, gathering dust, rusting in a barn, while the inventor watches his savings drain away and his reputation crumble. His family worries. His colleagues abandon him. He's become a cautionary tale, the madman who thought he could reinvent the wheel by getting rid of it entirely.
Demonstration Day, September 1906.
A military testing ground outside San Francisco. Rows of wooden benches filled with generals, politicians, journalists, and investors. Everyone who matters is here. This is Benjamin Holt's moment. His chance to prove the world wrong. His chance to show them that tracked locomotion isn't madness, it's the future. The machine sits at the edge of a muddy field, deliberately chosen to demonstrate what wheels and horses cannot do. Holt stands beside it, nervous but determined. He's rehearsed this. He knows every bolt, every gear, every potential failure point. The engine is warm, the tracks are tensioned, everything is ready. A general stands and addresses the crowd. Mr. Holt claims his contraption can traverse terrain that defeats our current artillery transport. Let's see if metal can outperform a good horse. Polite laughter ripples through the audience. The general sits, arms crossed, waiting to be unimpressed.
Holt climbs into the operator's seat. He signals his assistant. The engine roars to life, belching black smoke into the clear morning air. The crowd murmurs. Some lean forward. Others lean back, instinctively moving away from the noise and heat. The machine shudders. The tracks begin to move, grinding against the ground, lurching forward in jerky, uneven movements. And then it happens. The engine coughs, sputters, a mechanical wheeze that sounds like death. Black smoke pours from the exhaust, thick and oily. The tracks grind to a halt. The machine sits there, silent, except for the hissing of escaping steam. Holt frantically adjusts valves, checks gauges, tries to restart the engine. Nothing. The machine is dead. The crowd erupts, not in gasps of concern, but in laughter. Loud, mocking, cruel laughter. Generals slap their knees. Journalists scribble notes with grins on their faces. One man shouts, "Better stick to farming, Holt." Another yells, "I've seen better engineering in a child's toy." The humiliation is total and public. Holt's face burns red. His hands shake as he climbs down from the machine. His assistant looks away, unable to meet his eyes.
The next morning, the San Francisco Chronicle runs a headline, "The Tin Fool's Toy. Inventor's Dream Dies in a Cloud of Smoke." The article is savage. It mocks Holt's education, his ambitions, his sanity. Other papers pick up the story. Within days, Benjamin Holt is a national joke. Investment offers vanish. Military contracts evaporate. Banks refuse loans. He's finished. But in the back of the crowd that day, one man didn't laugh. A British military observer named Ernest Swinton watched the machine fail and thought something no one else did. He leaned over to his colleague and whispered, "If this ever works properly, it'll change everything." Sometimes the crowd isn't laughing at failure. They're laughing before it succeeds. They just don't know it yet.
He sold the future for the price of firewood. November 1906, 2 months after the demonstration disaster. Benjamin Holt stands in his workshop, watching workers dismantle his machine. Piece by piece, they strip it down. The tracks go first, heavy and awkward, dragged across the floor like the corpse of a metal snake. Then the engine, the frame, the steering mechanism, all of it headed for the scrapyard. Holt needs the money. The bank is calling in loans. His wife pleads with him to give up, find normal work, stop chasing impossible dreams.
He's 57 years old, too old to start over, too broke to continue, too humiliated to show his face at engineering conferences. The machine that was supposed to change everything is now worth less than the raw metal it's made from. $63. That's what the scrap dealer pays him. $63 for years of work, thousands in investments, and a vision no one else could see. The workshop empties. Holt walks through the space one final time, his footsteps echoing on bare concrete. Dust covers the workbenches, cobwebs hang in corners. This place was his kingdom, his laboratory, his second home. Now it's just an empty room that smells like failure.
But on his desk, forgotten in the chaos, lies a leather-bound notebook. He picks it up, flips through pages of calculations, sketches, and notes. Near the back, dated just weeks before the failed demonstration, there's a drawing. Cleaner lines, better proportions, improved track design, armor plating, a rotating turret. At the top of the page, written in his careful handwriting, Mark II, self-propelled armored vehicle.
It's decades ahead of its time, a tank in everything but name, and no one will ever see it. Holt closes the notebook, tucks it under his arm, locks the workshop door for the last time. As he walks away, he passes the neighbor's house. Through an open window, a radio crackles to life. A news announcer's voice cuts through the static. Tensions rise in Europe as military buildups continue. Germany expands its army. France fortifies its borders. Analysts warn that the continent sits on a powder keg waiting for a spark. Holt pauses, listens, then keeps walking. He doesn't know that in 8 years that powder keg will explode. He doesn't know that Europe will drown in trenches and barbed wire and machine gun fire. He doesn't know that desperate generals will beg for a machine exactly like the one he just sold for scrap. All he knows is that he tried. He failed, and the world has moved on without him. August 1914. Europe explodes. Declarations of war cascade like dominoes. Germany, France, Russia, Britain, Austria-Hungary. Within weeks, millions of men are marching toward battlefields with flags waving and bands playing. They think it will be over by Christmas. They think glory awaits. They think war is still the same romantic adventure their grandfathers fought. They're catastrophically wrong. By October, the romantic vision dies face down in French mud. The Western Front solidifies into a nightmare. Trenches stretch from the Swiss border to the English Channel. 400 miles of barbed wire, machine gun nests, and constant artillery fire. Men live like rats in holes filled with water, excrement, and rotting corpses. The smell alone drives some insane. Lice infest every uniform. Trench foot rots away toes and feet. And above it all, the machine guns wait. Generals try the only tactics they know: frontal assaults, bayonet charges, human waves sent running across open ground toward entrenched positions. It's suicidal madness dressed up as military strategy. The machine guns cut them down by the thousands.
Boys who kissed their mothers goodbye 3 months ago are now unidentifiable pieces scattered across cratered wastelands. The Battle of the Somme will kill 60,000 British soldiers on the first day alone. The first day.
But here's the thing the history books don't emphasize enough. Most men didn't die from bullets. They died from waiting in trenches while artillery pounded them into psychological wreckage, waiting for orders that would send them over the top into certain death, waiting for supplies that couldn't reach them because the mud swallowed horses, wagons, and men attempting to move forward. The Western Front wasn't a battlefield. It was a vast, open-air coffin where mobility went to die. Nothing could move. Artillery pieces sank into mud and became useless. Cavalry charges were massacred before they crossed 50 meters. Supply wagons bogged down and starved entire divisions. Wounded men drowned in shell craters before stretcher-bearers could reach them. The war became static, frozen, a stalemate measured in meters and paid for in lives. Back in London, the generals who once laughed at Benjamin Holt's demonstration now signed death reports by the thousands. The same men who mocked tracked locomotion now watch their armies bleed out because nothing can cross the killing fields. One of them, General Douglas Haig, stares at casualty figures and mutters about equipment failures, tactical limitations, the impossibility of breakthrough.
In a corner office, a junior officer named Ernest Swinton reviews intelligence reports. He's seen the mud. He's walked the trenches. He knows men are dying not because they lack courage, but because they lack a way forward. He sits at his desk, smoking, thinking, trying to remember something. A demonstration years ago. California. A strange machine that coughed smoke and failed to impress anyone. He leans back in his chair and speaks to no one in particular. Didn't some lunatic once try to fix this?
August 1914. Europe explodes. Declarations of war cascade like dominoes. Germany, France, Russia, Britain, Austria-Hungary. Within weeks, millions of men are marching toward battlefields, with flags waving and bands playing. They think it will be over by Christmas. They think glory awaits. They think war is still the same romantic adventure their grandfathers fought. They're catastrophically wrong. By October, the romantic vision dies face down in French mud. The Western Front solidifies into a nightmare. Trenches stretch from the Swiss border to the English Channel. 400 miles of barbed wire, machine gun nests, and constant artillery fire. Men live like rats in holes filled with water, excrement, and rotten corpses. The smell alone drives some insane. Lice infest every uniform. Trenchfoot rots away toes and feet. And above it all, the machine guns wait. Generals try the only tactics they know: frontal assaults, bayonet charges, human waves sent running across open ground toward entrenched positions. It's suicidal madness dressed up as military strategy. The machine guns cut them down by the thousands. Boys who kissed their mothers goodbye 3 months ago are now unidentifiable pieces scattered across cratered wastelands. The Battle of the Somme will kill 60,000 British soldiers on the first day alone. The first day.
But here's the thing the history books don't emphasize enough. Most men didn't die from bullets. They died from waiting. Waiting in trenches while artillery pounded them into psychological wreckage. Waiting for orders that would send them over the top into certain death. Waiting for supplies they couldn't reach them because the mud swallowed horses, wagons, and men attempting to move forward. The Western Front wasn't a battlefield. It was a vast, open-air coffin where mobility went to die. Nothing could move. Artillery pieces sank into mud and became useless. Cavalry charges were massacred before they crossed 50 meters. Supply wagons bogged down and starved entire divisions. Wounded men drowned in shell craters before stretcher bearers could reach them. The war became static, frozen, a stalemate measured in meters and paid for in lives. Back in London, the generals who once laughed at Benjamin Holt's demonstration now signed death reports by the thousands. The same men who mocked tracked locomotion now watch their armies bleed out because nothing can cross the killing fields. One of them, General Douglas Haig, stares at casualty figures and mutters about equipment failures, tactical limitations, the impossibility of breakthrough.
In a corner office, a junior officer named Ernest Swinton reviews intelligence reports. He's seen the mud. He's walked the trenches. He knows men are dying not because they lack courage, but because they lack a way forward. He sits at his desk, smoking, thinking, trying to remember something. A demonstration years ago, California, a strange machine that coughed smoke and failed to impress anyone. He leans back in his chair and speaks to no one in particular. Didn't some lunatic once try to fix this? March 1915. A British military warehouse outside London. Rows of forgotten equipment gathering dust, obsolete rifles, broken artillery pieces, failed experiments from a more optimistic time. A young mechanic named William Tritton walks through the debris searching for spare parts, anything useful, anything that might help the war effort. The cupboards are bare. Britain is running out of everything except bodies to throw into the meat grinder. Then he sees it. Tucked in a corner, half covered by a tarp, sits a rusted mechanical cylinder. Strange, heavy, unlike anything else in the warehouse. Tritton pulls back the canvas and stares. It's a track system. Articulated metal plates connected by pins, designed to distribute weight across soft ground. He's never seen anything like it. There's a stamp on the frame, barely visible through the rust. Holt Manufacturing Company, Stockton, California, 1904. Holt. The name rings a bell. Tritton racks his memory. Wasn't there some American inventor who tried to build a tracked vehicle, some madman who demonstrated it and became a laughingstock? He remembers reading about it years ago. A footnote in an engineering journal, dismissed as impractical nonsense.
But standing here, looking at this machine, Tritton sees something different. He sees potential. The trenches have proven that wheels are useless in mud. Horses are targets. But tracks? Tracks distribute weight. Tracks don't sink. Tracks could move where nothing else can. He reports his finding to Ernest Swinton, the officer who's been quietly advocating for a new kind of warfare. Swinton arrives within hours. He walks around the rusted tracks, touching them, calculating, thinking. This is it. This is the answer everyone said didn't exist. They work in secret. Tritton and a small team of engineers rebuild the track system. They improve it. They attach it to an armored frame. They mount a gun on top. They add an engine powerful enough to move the entire contraption across the worst terrain imaginable. The machine that failed in peace would work perfectly in war. September 1915. A testing ground in Hatfield. Military observers gather, skeptical but desperate. Tritton climbs into the driver's seat. His hand shakes as he reaches for the ignition lever. This is the moment. Everything depends on this.
He pulls the lever.
The engine roars, the tracks bite into soft earth, and the machine moves. Not smoothly, not quietly. It lurches forward like a drunken elephant, spewing black smoke, grinding gear, screaming in protest. But it moves. Through mud that swallows jeeps, over trenches that stop entire battalions, across craters filled with water and debris. The observers stand in stunned silence. One general removes his hat. Another whispers something that sounds like prayer. September 15th, 1916. The Somme. The first tanks roll into combat. They're crude, unreliable, terrifying to look at. Crews inside roast from engine heat and choke on fumes, but they work. Bullets bounce off armored plates. Barbed wire crumbles beneath their weight. Machine gun nests that have held positions for months are crushed or bypassed entirely. German soldiers see these metal monsters emerge from the smoke, and some simply run, others surrender. They've never seen anything like this. Behind the tanks, British infantry advances. For the first time in 2 years, they're not being slaughtered. The tanks draw fire, absorb punishment, create gaps in defenses. Men who would have died crossing open ground now survive. Wounded soldiers are evacuated behind the rolling armor. Supply lines finally reach forward positions.
The survivors call them miracle machines. Letters home describe metal beasts that saved entire companies. The invention, mocked as useless, became the reason hundreds didn't die that day. 3,000 miles away, in a small house in Stockton, California, Benjamin Holt sits reading the newspaper. He's 73 now, gray, tired. He gave up on dreams long ago. Then a telegram arrives. His hands shake as he opens it. 4 words from the British War Office. Your contraption works magnificently.
He built a lifeboat. They turned it into a battleship. November 1916. Benjamin Holt receives an official invitation from the British War Office. They want him to visit England, to see what his design has become, to witness his vindication firsthand. He's hesitant. He's old. The journey is long, but curiosity and pride win out. After a decade of humiliation, the world finally wants to see him. He arrives at a military factory outside Birmingham. The noise hits him first. Hammering, riveting, the screech of metal being cut and shaped. Hundreds of workers move in coordinated chaos, assembling something massive. As he walks through the facility, escorted by engineers and military officers, he sees it. His tracked design, but transformed, evolved, weaponized. These aren't agricultural machines anymore. They're armored fortresses on tracks. Gun turrets rotate on top. Flamethrower nozzles jut from the sides. Armor plating thick enough to stop artillery shells covers every surface. The tracks he designed to help farmers cross soft soil now carry machines built specifically to kill. Engineers explain the improvements with pride. Better engines, wider tracks, reinforced armor, faster production times. They're churning out 20 tanks per week, with plans to scale up to 50. Holt listens in silence. His face gives nothing away, but inside, something breaks. This isn't what he imagined. He designed his machine to move supplies, to save labor,
to help humanity conquer difficult terrain. He never sketched gun turrets. He never calculated armor thickness for deflecting bullets. He built something to preserve life, and they've turned it into the most efficient killing tool on the battlefield.
A British minister approaches, beaming. "Mr. Holt, you must be enormously proud. Your invention has changed warfare forever. Historians will write about this for centuries. You've made history." Holt stares at a tank rolling off the assembly line. Its engine rumbles. Its tracks clank against concrete. Workers cheer as it passes, heading toward a transport ship that will carry it to the front lines, where it will crush men beneath its weight and incinerate others with mounted flamethrowers. He thinks about the soldiers who mocked him, the investors who laughed, the newspapers that called him a fool. They were right to laugh, not because his machine didn't work, but because it worked too well. He turns to the minister, and his voice is quiet, almost a whisper. "No, I haven't made history." The minister's smile falters. "I'm sorry? I've made a monster." The factory noise continues around them, hammering, riveting, the birth cries of mechanical demons. Holt walks away, his shoulders slumped, suddenly looking every one of his 73 years. The minister watches him go, confused, then shrugs and returns to inspecting the production line. There's a war to win, after all. Morality is a luxury they can't afford. Outside, Holt stands in the cold November air. He can still hear the factory. He'll hear it for the rest of his life. In his pocket, the telegram from months ago sits folded and worn. Your contraption works magnificently. He thought those words would bring peace. Instead, they brought the knowledge that he's given humanity a new way to destroy itself. Vindication tastes like ash.
He saved lives by creating the blueprint for mechanized death. The medals arrived throughout 1917. British honors, French commendations, American industrial awards. They pile up in a drawer in his study, untouched, gathering dust just like his original prototype once did. Newspapers call him a genius. Engineering societies that once blacklisted him now beg him to speak at conferences. Universities offer honorary degrees. The president sends a personal letter of gratitude. Benjamin Holt, once the laughingstock of San Francisco, is now celebrated as the man who changed modern warfare. He attends exactly one ceremony. They pin the medal to his chest while photographers capture the moment. He smiles for the camera, because that's what's expected. But his eyes are empty. At the reception afterward, military officers and politicians crowd around him, shaking his hand, praising his brilliance, asking about future innovations. He nods politely, says the right words, and leaves as soon as decorum allows. At night, lying in bed, he hears them. Not actual sounds, but memories so vivid they might as well be real. The factory machines, stamping, cutting, assembling, 20 tanks per week, then 50. By 1918, hundreds. Each one bearing the fundamental design he sketched in his workshop decades ago. Each one carrying men into battle. Each one designed to kill efficiently and survive to kill again.
His wife finds him one evening, standing at the window, staring at nothing. "They're calling you a hero," she says gently. "Heroes save people," he replies. "I just made it easier to kill them in larger numbers." She has no answer to that. The apprentice visits in early 1918 a young engineer named Thomas, bright-eyed and eager, who studied Holt's designs in school. He wants advice. He wants to learn from the master. He arrives with notebooks full of sketches, ideas for improving the tank design, better armor, more powerful engines, faster tracks. Holt looks through the notebook in silence, page after page of innovations, each one making the machine more lethal. When he finishes, he closes the notebook and hands it back. Thomas waits expectantly, hoping for praise, for guidance, for the blessing of genius. "Can you build something that heals?" Holt asks. Thomas blinks, confused. "Sir, you're talented, brilliant even. You could design anything." Holt's voice is urgent now, almost pleading. "So promise me. Promise me you'll use that talent to make something that heals. Medical equipment, surgical tools, vehicles that carry medicine, not bullets. Anything. Just promise me."
Thomas stammers something about the war effort, about duty, about how his skills are needed for the tanks. Holt waves him away. The young man leaves, bewildered and slightly offended. He'll go on to design improved tank treads that will be used in World War II. He'll never understand what Holt was trying to tell him. Alone again, Holt returns to his workshop, not the grand facility from his prime, just a small space in his home where he tinkers with projects no one will ever see. He's working on a tracked ambulance, armor to protect wounded soldiers during transport, a design that uses his invention to save rather than kill. It's too late for this war, probably too late for anything. But he has to try. He has to prove to himself that his machine can be more than a weapon. The hammer falls. Metal shapes under his hands. And in the distance, if you listen carefully, you can still hear the factories running, day and night, building monsters. All of them his children.
You've seen his work every day of your life. You just never knew his name. Benjamin Holt died in 1920, 2 years after the war ended. No state funeral, no military parade. A quiet burial attended by family and a handful of former employees. The newspapers ran brief obituaries, mostly focused on his agricultural machinery business. A few mentioned the tanks, almost as an afterthought. Within a decade, his name had faded from public memory, buried beneath the names of generals and politicians who claimed credit for innovations they never imagined. But his machine never died. World War II. Thousands of tanks roll across Europe, Africa, and Asia. Sherman tanks, Panzers, T-34s. Every single one uses the fundamental principle Holt pioneered: continuous tracks distributing weight across soft terrain. The engineers who designed them studied his patents. The factories that built them used his manufacturing techniques. The soldiers who drove them owed their mobility to a man they'd never heard of. Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. The tanks evolved. They got faster, deadlier, more sophisticated. Composite armor replaced steel. Computer targeting systems replaced iron sights. But underneath all the technology, the basic principle remained unchanged: tracked locomotion, the idea everyone laughed at in 1906. Check a modern military textbook. Search for the invention of the tank. You'll find names like Ernest Swinton, William Tritton, even Winston Churchill, who championed their development. All important, all deserving of recognition. But Holt? A footnote at best, sometimes not mentioned at all. The man who created the fundamental technology is absent from his own story. Open your phone. Search for images of modern military equipment. M1 Abrams tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers. Look at the tracks. The design is refined, improved, modernized. But it's still his design. The same articulated metal plates, the same weight distribution principle, the same solution to the problem of moving heavy equipment across impossible terrain. Now look at this, a photograph from 2024. American soldiers in Eastern Europe standing beside their tanks during a training exercise. The machines are technological marvels, packed with electronics that would seem like magic to anyone from 1906. But zoom in on the tracks. Compare them to a sketch from Holt's notebook, dated 1904.
They're the same, 120 years later, and they're essentially the same. The ghost in the machine, present in every conflict, saving lives and taking them. The invisible foundation of modern mechanized warfare. And almost nobody knows his name. The line between genius and madness is often drawn by those who lack the vision to see beyond their own limitations. Benjamin Holt died forgotten, his name erased from the very revolution he birthed. Yet perhaps that's the truest measure of innovation, when your creation becomes so fundamental that people can't imagine a world without it. The rejected become essential, the ridiculed become indispensable, the broken become the builders of tomorrow. This is the cruel arithmetic of progress. Those who see the future first are condemned to be misunderstood by their present. Holt's tracks, mocked as absurd in peacetime, became the legs that carried warfare into the modern age. His redemption came not through recognition, but through the undeniable reality of mud-caked battlefields where only his machines could move. Innovation and destruction, forever intertwined like steel tracks grinding through history. But before this machine changed the battlefield, another unseen war had already rewritten the world. Before World War I, there was a war the history books forgot.
In 1904, while Europe slumbered in imperial arrogance, two empires clashed in Manchuria. What happened there would prophesy every horror of the Great War. Machine guns scything down waves of men, artillery turning earth to moonscape, trenches becoming graves. The future of warfare was written in Asian snow, not European mud. We just refused to read it. The distant echo of gunfire grows louder. Through the smoke, text slowly emerges. World War Zero, the Russo-Japanese war that changed the world. The revolution had already begun. We simply chose not to notice.